One night across Canada.
7,000 diners in 15 different cities across Canada ate at more than 65 restaurants.
And raised over $250,000 for healthy food and healthy food programs in low-income communities.
We are talking about Restaurants for Change, and this is the second year in a row that Winnipeg has participated, raising funds for the Norwest Co-op Community Food Centre. Well, Chef Rob, you are such a big, true believer of whole, organic, healthy food. And this event, Restaurants for Change, community food centers, they totally embody what your vision is. And how cool is it? You're going to be hanging around with some of our top chefs here in the city, in the kitchen and in the field, talking about what you do best, food.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love it. And you're going to get a chance to see it firsthand. 100% of the food profits from those restaurants of that night go to support local food community centers. And here, it's the Norwest Community Co-op.
Well, thank you so much, Rob, for introducing me to this incredible event. You're going to sit back now and enjoy Restaurants for Change 2016. But right now, here's a story on how this whole food movement began.
Davenport has been identified as one of the poorest communities in the city of Toronto. There are a lot of people who are trying their best to survive on low incomes. We serve approximately 300 meals a day, if not more. We do breakfast and lunch. It's about providing good quality food. It's about providing food that is not just good for the participants who are consuming it, but also good for the local economy, supporting local farmers. It's good for the food system.
It's always mystified me why it is that the basic response to hunger in our communities has been the food bank. And I actually believe we need a much more honest conversation about food banking and how food charity is not the answer to hunger. The stop 14 some odd years ago was a really difficult place. It just wasn't a place that you felt good about walking in the door. We just wanted to hear what people had to say, and it was very clear early on that the food bank wasn't cutting it for them. But what they did say is that we want to be cooks, we want to be gardeners, we want to be volunteers, we want to be engaged citizens, we want to be involved, and that was a cue to us that we needed to develop programs that allowed people to be involved, to be engaged. From an equity perspective, over 1 million people use food banks a year. When you look at it from a health perspective, we see an enormous explosion of diet-related illnesses, from cancer to obesity to diabetes to coronary heart disease. And then when you look at it from an environmental perspective, close to 30% of the greenhouse gases and pollution in our country are related to the way we move food from field to table. So however you slice it, we need to start to think about how we get at these seemingly intractable problems. We need to start to build organizations that are transformative and that can move the dial in a measured way on poverty and hunger.
We started trying to figure out what the model was because we received so much interest in it. I mean, there's so much interest in food in general, and the STOP is one of the larger organizations doing this work. And we sat down and we wrote a paper a couple of years ago. The idea being that when you bring programs together under one roof, the sum can be more than its parts. The program mix, we decided is not important that it be prescriptive or repeated exactly. There are tons of programs that can be offered as part of a community food center, and programs that currently are being offered across the country as part of different initiatives. But bringing them together under one roof and roughly falling into the areas of access, skills, and engagement.
Community Food Centres Canada has been an inspiration to us. Through the Stop Now Community Food Centres Canada, we not only saw an injection of money, we saw an injection of knowledge, advice, guidance. We have something we could model ourselves on.
I think what I've noticed in this last year, and some of our participants say it very directly, is that they feel good coming to the table. It's very much a community center, and say our meals are probably the place where that's most obvious, because people come in, it's like they're waving across the room to the friends that they know from down the road or somewhere else, and there's a real family feel to the meals, to the garden as well.
What we're looking for in partners is we're looking for dynamic leaders who share our vision and values and who have both the capacity to see how they can meet a need in their community, but also how they can be part of something bigger.
So Stratford is a town of about 30,000 people. It's a place where food is very, very important. At the same time, it's also a place where there remains a bit of a disconnect between the great food that's out there and people who could really benefit from it. Really, it started as this sort of humble idea to have a warehouse for the food banks to access, and it's just blossomed into this amazing multi-dimensional project that's also going to include activism, advocacy, and all those great things that community food centers are going to become sort of synonymous with. To be the pilot for Community Food Centers Canada and to know that what we learn here will actually help other community food centers across Canada, it's really amazing. I think of a time when in the future a community food center will be something as ubiquitous as having a YMCA in your community or having a public library. People will say, of course we have a community food center. We're a community. We care about food, and we recognize the value that food has and the power that food has to bring our citizens together and to promote the health and well-being of the people who live here.
So we're here at the South Osborne Community Gardens, and this is a place where you find a lot of the produce that ends up at our local farmers markets. Now this produce also ends up in Chef Ben Kramer's hands, and he's become our champion of this this local farm to table movement. So what are we doing here, Ben? Are we hanging out? Are we looking at things?
Yeah, it's the end of the season, so we're just kind of taking a look at what's left.
Yeah, so what do we have left here?
We still got a lot of cabbage, there's still a lot of kale. The herbs are kind of finishing up, but there's some late harvest tomatoes, potatoes still to come up. Got a ton of edible flowers and some peppers still.
So, farm to table.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you, and why did you start doing this whole farm to table movement?
Well, a number of reasons. For me as a chef, obviously taste and quality is number one, and the more middlemen I can eliminate, the quicker I can get food from the garden to your plate. On top of that, there's always the added bonus of helping out the local economy. I'd rather give my money to local farmers that are working in Manitoba and doing good things than sending it overseas.
And you've been doing this for a while. Like, this is not something.
No, yeah.
This is not something new. So do you garden at home? Your garden's
I do.
not like
Yeah,
this?
I got a small garden at home. Grow enough to can and freeze for the winter for my place, but just feeding me and my kids.
It looks like it's a lot. I look on your Instagram
Lots
and
of
I see
close-ups and lots of cropping.
And now with this whole movement, you're incorporating this into Restaurants for Change.
Yeah, so Restaurants for Change is a great fundraiser. The Canadian Food Centers of Canada in Toronto for 20-some years has kind of redid the way we think about getting food accessible to people that maybe don't have access to it. So they kind of shook up the model of just giving a handout to people that can't afford food, and have incorporated trying to do that with healthy, local, nutritious food as opposed to whatever's left over. So they've been doing that for a number of years in Toronto. They've expanded throughout Canada. I think there's 9 possibly across Canada right now. We opened up one in Winnipeg, the Norwest Community Centre. Has partnered with them. I think that opened 3 years ago.
Okay.
So we're trying to raise money for it. So Restaurants for Change is a national campaign. Restaurants from across Canada, over 60 of them, are going to donate sales from the night of October 19th to the food centers, and then half the money raised stays in their own city as well.
Okay, so this is helping out a lot of people, but also there's a dining experience from it too.
Absolutely.
Right on the other side of that.
Absolutely. So at the food centers, what happens is if you need a meal, they'll, with no questions asked, they'll feed you. But rather than giving you a cafeteria tray and giving you whatever food they have, they'll actually serve you. They'll bring you coffee. They'll give you an option. They'll bring food to your table. So really, it's about food and dignity more so than just getting somebody fed.
Yeah, and then so when we have all these local ingredients, so it is seasonal, right? Because we're still, you know,
In the
where we
prairies.
live. Yeah, it's our climate. There's only certain things that we can get. You say you do a lot of canning and stuff like that at home. Now it's funny because a lot of people think that chefs are just always chefs, and that's what we're doing. That kind of is what you do at home, but you feed your family with this.
Yeah, I live it. I mean, for me, the way I cook and the style of food that I do, and the ethics behind it, that doesn't come from my cooking career. That's just who I am, and I kind of brought that into my cooking career.
All right, let's take a little walk around here and just kind of see what other things we have growing here. What are your favorite vegetables that you like to cook with?
I'm super produce heavy in my cooking. I mean, I love meat, I love fish, but produce definitely in the summer is my favorite. There's very little I don't like to work with.
Is there anything that you find that is, since you do it a lot at home, is there anything you find that's kind of a little bit like difficult to grow or just very like time consuming?
For me, because I'm not a gardener, it's just a hobby. I buy a lot of produce, but I just like to try things out that I've never tried to see if they grow. This year I actually grew a couple artichokes, which I didn't think would grow here, but I gave
Artichokes?
it. Yeah, I got big artichoke. You know, it took all summer, but I got one massive artichoke that we ate in about 10 minutes.
Peel away all the leaves,
Yeah,
and then you just got this
little
little
heart about this big. It's delicious.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, for me, it's more about the process and the actual end result. I'm not growing on a commercial scale. I'm just, you know, trying to have fun and feed my family while I do it.
and eat well.
Yeah.
So now there's another side. Like we all try and eat well. I know I try to, but there's guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
So what are some of your, maybe not your top, but just like maybe what are some of your guilty pleasures?
Beer.
Beer?
Beer, pizza, I love a lot. Yeah.
So do you find that a lot of restaurants now are starting to kind of catch on to this local farm
more
to
so
movement?
than ever. I mean, I moved here 16 years ago, and coming from BC, I was shocked at the lack of availability of local products. And you know, at the time there was maybe one or two sort of dabbling in it. And so I just kind of dug in and got deep with it. And now, you know, there's tons of restaurants using local, you know, not 100% because that's almost impossible here. But the restaurant market, I think, has expanded quite a bit. You know, a big part of it is consumer demand, but the other part of it is now farmers have access to these restaurants.
There's availability, right?
Yeah, totally.
Right. So Restaurants for Change, I think the hardest choice for that evening is going to be where you go.
Welcome back. Yes, it is Restaurants for Change 2016 here in Winnipeg, and I have Lila Knox. And Lila, I think, has one of the best jobs in the world right now, right, Lila?
I do. I've been the director of the Community Food Center at the Norwest Community Health Center for 1 month today. So this is my first time at Restaurants for Change. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to people like Ben Kramer and all the chefs that he has recruited for tonight.
Now, we just saw the video on how everything started in Toronto and what a big movement it is there, and I really think that we can do it here.
Oh, absolutely. Nick Saul is the visionary behind it, but it all just makes so much sense when you see it. This new model of food security has dignity, access to food, education, advocacy for a better food system, and I'm just so thrilled that the Winnipeg chefs have gotten behind Ben Kramer and believe in it.
Oh, wow. You know what? And Norwest is such an amazing spot. The people there are fantastic. And you know what? I really feel a sense of community there.
Absolutely. I've just met these new staff, and every one of them is committed to this cause. And we have a great chef, a great social worker, food programmers, fundraisers. Everybody seems really into this. And then we have this huge cohort of volunteers who just pick up and run with it, and you can see that it's developed in them a real sense of community.
Okay, well, you're in for a real treat. We're at Ben's pop-up. I think he's got elk on the menu.
Oh, I eat anything. Okay. I have no problem with that, and I've brought my husband and some friends, and I think we're going to, wow, it's the perk of my new job. I just think I'm in for a really nice evening.
Well, enjoy yourself. Now, later on, Rob is actually going to be in a community garden with Chef Ben. But right now, let's do lunchtime at Norwest Co-op. Something smells delicious in the kitchen.
More salt.
More salt. What about garlic?
And the cooks are very busy prepping. Wolfgang Huber is showing off his chopping skills in his new volunteer job.
I had to do something after retirement.
How is your wrist? That was a lot of chopping.
Is it?
Well, you did the kale, you did garlic, and parsley. So yeah, you did a lot of chopping.
So this is a free community lunch that happens 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Chef Grant makes sure everything is fresh and healthy. On today's menu, homemade salsa, whole wheat tortillas, black beans, and spicy rice. And it has Wolfgang quite impressed.
Yeah, I was surprised about the level of, how you see that, the quality. I mean, it's like a restaurant setting up.
The Norwest Co-op Community Food Center opened its doors in 2015. And it is the only one in Manitoba.
How are you? We have lots of programs here, so we have sort of 3 areas that we focus on in the center. We have access to fresh and healthy food. We have programs that involve building food skills and education around food, and we have advocacy and engagement programs as well. During our lunch, our advocacy office is open. This office is staffed by community volunteers who have been through an advocacy training, and they're there to support anyone in the community who wants to stop in, who maybe needs some help navigating a system. They see something in their community that they want to change. Anything, those advocates are there and ready to help. We have lots going on off-site from here. We also run a fresh food market to help people in the community gain access to healthy food, which isn't always easy. There are constantly all kinds of healthy living and healthy food programs going on here. This center truly is a community meeting place. Walking in here my first day, it was such a beautiful space, and I was greeted by so many people, community members that really have an ownership over the place, which is amazing.
When we come back, we visit Promenade Cafe, Mitchell Block, and Tracy stops by the Merchant Kitchen.
Food is this incredible thing. If you eat it together, you grow community and you grow connection. Through it, you can express your culture and your background. If you eat good food, it energizes you and makes you healthy. If you grow food sustainably, it nourishes the soil and increases the health of our planet. And if everyone has access to good food, you have inclusive, beautiful, connected, and equitable communities.
Because 4 million Canadians struggle to afford the healthy food they need.
Because many of those affected are children.
Because people with lower incomes have higher rates of diet-related illness.
And it's costing our healthcare system billions of dollars every year.
Because every Canadian has the right to healthy food.
On the 3rd Wednesday in October, restaurants across Canada are donating proceeds from dinner service to support healthy food for all.
Because we are Restaurants for Change.